Look at a modern map. Combine the United States, Canada, and China. You are still short of the landmass controlled by one single man, 12 million contiguous square miles, an empire stretching from the Sea of Japan to the gates of Vienna. This is the largest contiguous land empire in human history. It was built by Genghis Khan. But he did not start as a conqueror. He started as Temujin, a starving outcast hiding in the frozen marshes of the Siberian border. His father was poisoned. His tribe abandoned him. His mother was left to feed her children on wild roots and rodents. He had no wealth, no army, and no literacy. His rise is a statistical impossibility. The steppe did not teach Temujin how to rule. It taught him how to survive. He learned that traditional loyalty was a lie. His own blood relatives betrayed him. His closest friend turned into his deadliest rival. On the Mongolian steppe, aristocrats ruled by blood right. They used lower-class nomads as cannon fodder. Temujin realized this system was weak. It bred resentment. When he finally united the warring tribes in 1206, he did something radical. He wiped out the aristocracy. He executed the tribal elites. He rebuilt the entire society from scratch. Temujin broke the old tribal structures and built a strict decimal military system. He organized every male from age 15 to 70 into precise units. The smallest unit was the arban, consisting of 10 men. 10 arbans made a jagan of 100 men. 10 jagans made a mingan of 1,000. 10 mingans formed a tumen, a massive self-sustaining division of 10,000 warriors. You could not switch units. Leaving your arban meant death for the entire group. This system destroyed tribal identity. A warrior no longer fought for his clan. He fought for his unit. Loyalty was rewarded with merit, not birthright. A common herder could rise to command a tumen based purely on skill. This meritocracy turned a chaotic web of nomadic tribes into a singular, highly disciplined military machine. The Mongol army was entirely mounted. Every single soldier traveled with 3 to 5 horses. This completely eliminated the concept of a traditional supply chain. When one horse grew tired, the rider switched to the next. The army traveled up to 80 miles a day. European armies of the same era managed 15 miles on a good day. The Mongols ate on the move. They dried milk curd into paste. They cured meat under their saddles. If food ran out, a warrior would cut a small vein in his horse's neck, drink a few ounces of blood, and keep riding. The Mongol weapon of choice was the composite bow. It was constructed from layers of birch, horn, and sinew. This design gave it a draw weight of up to 160 pounds. It could kill an enemy at 300 yards. Mongol archers used a thumb ring to release the arrow. This increased their rate of fire and precision. They trained to release the arrow at the exact moment all 4 of their horses' hooves were off the ground. This minimized the vibration of the horse's gallop. It allowed for lethal accuracy at high speeds. The Mongol army operated as a single, massive organism. Every commander communicated across vast battlefields using a sophisticated system of signal flags, smoke signals, and burning arrows. At night, lanterns hung from spears coordinated complex flanking maneuvers. This high-velocity coordination made the Mongols completely unpredictable to their adversaries. European and Asian armies relied on heavily armored nobility who fought as individual duelists seeking personal glory. The Mongols fought as a cohesive machine. They viewed personal glory as a liability. The only metric of success was absolute victory for the collective unit. This military machine weaponized environmental adaptation. In Russia, they waited for winter. Most armies avoid cold weather campaigns. The Mongols welcomed it. They used frozen rivers as natural highways to bypass dense, muddy forests. This allowed them to strike deep into the interior of the fractured Russian principalities at speeds previously thought impossible. Their horses dug through the deep snow to eat wild grass, surviving where European war horses starved. By turning the brutal winter climate into a tactical advantage, they achieved the only successful winter invasion of Russia in recorded history. The Mongol army encountered its next great obstacle at the borders of China. The Western Xia and Jin dynasties were protected by massive rammed earth walls. The Mongols were nomadic horsemen. They had zero experience with siege warfare. They solved this problem through rapid adaptation. They captured Chinese engineers. They forced them to build catapults, trebuchets, and battering rams. If a city refused to surrender, the Mongols redirected nearby rivers to flood the foundations of the walls. They turned Chinese technology against Chinese cities. The primary weapon of the Mongol army was not the bow, it was psychology. Genghis Khan used terror as a calculated strategic tool. He offered cities a simple choice: total surrender or absolute annihilation. If a city opened its gates, they were spared. They paid a tax and were integrated into the empire. If a city resisted for even a day, every single living thing inside was slaughtered once the walls fell. The Mongols spared only the artisans, engineers, and doctors. They sent these captives to the next target to build siege weapons and spread the news of the massacre. The Mongols engineered rumors. They allowed terrified survivors to escape into neighboring territories. These refugees carried exaggerated stories of Mongol cruelty in infinite numbers. Before the Mongol army even arrived, the enemy population was already paralyzed by fear. This psychological warfare broke the enemy's will to fight before a single sword was drawn. The Mongol tactical playbook relied heavily on the feigned retreat, executed by a specialized vanguard known as the Mangudai. This tactic required absolute discipline. The Mangudai would engage the enemy army. After a brief skirmish, the vanguard would panic and flee. They would drop weapons and baggage to make the retreat look genuine. Enemy commanders routinely took the bait. They would break their defensive formations to pursue the fleeing Mongols. The chase would last for hours, sometimes days. The enemy soldiers would grow exhausted and scattered. Once the enemy was strung out over miles of open terrain, the trap snapped shut. Fresh Mongol heavy cavalry would appear from behind the hills. They would encircle the disorganized enemy. The fleeing vanguard would instantly wheel around and rejoin the attack. The Mongols would shower the packed mass of enemy soldiers with arrows from all sides. It was a meat grinder disguised as a retreat. Genghis Khan realized that a global empire required global communication. He built the YAM system. This was the world's first true transcontinental postal and intelligence network. The Mongols constructed fortified relay stations every 25 to 30 miles along major trade routes. Each station maintained a stable of fresh horses and provisions. Messengers wore bells on their belts to signal their arrival. As a messenger approached a station, the attendants heard the bells and readied a fresh horse. The messenger could leap from one horse to the next without stopping. If the messenger was too exhausted to continue, a new rider took the dispatch. This network allowed messages to travel thousands of miles in a matter of days. A letter could travel from the Danube River to Mongolia in 2 weeks. It gave the Central Command real-time intelligence on enemy movements and internal rebellions. The YAM system secured the trade routes of Eurasia. This period became known as the Pax Mongolica. For the first time in history, a merchant could travel from Rome to Beijing with a golden tablet called a paisa, provided by the Khan. This tablet guaranteed safe passage, free supplies, and protection through all Mongol territories. Trade flourished. Silk, gunpowder, paper, and medicine flowed west. Silver and wool flowed east. The Silk Road was no longer a dangerous path controlled by hundreds of competing warlords. It was a single state-protected highway. This rigid efficiency extended into their legal system, the Great Yasa. Genghis Khan codified a strict set of laws that applied to everyone, from the lowest herder to the highest general. The Yasa outlawed the theft of animals, the kidnapping of women, and the betrayal of allies. It created a predictable environment across millions of square miles. The legal code enforced complete religious tolerance. Genghis Khan exempted priests, monks, rabbis, and imams from taxes. He understood that fighting religious wars was a waste of resources. By protecting local customs, he neutralized potential rebellions before they could spark. Genghis Khan died in 1227 during a campaign against the Western Shia. He did not die in battle. He succumbed to internal injuries after falling from his horse during a hunt. His empire did not collapse with his death. His decimal system, meritocracy, and communication network allowed his sons and grandsons to continue the expansion. They pushed deep into Poland, Hungary, Russia, and the Middle East. The empire reached its absolute geographic peak under his successors, who conquered Baghdad, ended the Islamic Golden Age, and established the Yuan dynasty in China. This vast network laid the groundwork for the modern world by spreading technology across continents. The global super network accelerated the transition out of the Middle Ages, shaping the global economy for centuries to follow. The Mongol Empire eventually fractured into four massive khanates due to its sheer size and succession disputes. The core administrative structure could not hold the weight of the entire world. The illiterate boy from the Siberian border had redesigned global geopolitics. He tore down the old world order and forced the East and West into a singular, interconnected network.